Hi, parents, and other interested folks. Thank you for watching part one of this video series on providing parental leadership. Um, when you've experienced divorce and separation, and so that's the question: how do I as a parent, how do you as a parent, if you have gone through divorce and separation, or thinking about it, or in the midst of it, or maybe it happened for you years ago, but and you've brought children into this world, then you know that your heart's desire is still to provide um, good leadership. And if you watched part one, that's kind of where that left off with that question. We kind of painted some of the landscape back then, and as I was mentioning, I often encounter and even have personally been through my own divorce and separations, and have a child of 25 now, and it wasn't easy, I can tell you that. But and I know that everybody would agree, and it shouldn't be easy. As I said before, in terms of the issues of separation and divorce, if you make a significant commitment to something, and you do so as a matter of an expression of your love, you do it in love, um, then there's a deep bonding that takes place. And so when a separation occurs, of course it creates, you know, distress and anguish and pain. It should. That's really a sign that you're a healthy human being. Um, and as I was mentioning, for a person to not experience that is really quite inhumane, and inhuman. And we live in a time where much of society are trying to establish rules and practices that help people escape that pain. And so consequently, um, that idea that I just described, to kind of try to go around or mitigate this pain, is really an act of the immature person. It's an act of the immature mind. And so that's why it also is really part of this time of inflated entitlement and indulgence. In other words, people want their cake. They want to eat it too, right? Um, it's not unlike an immature person, like a child, who wants an adult freedom but doesn't want to bear the consequences, doesn't want to bear the responsibilities. And that's a lot of where we're at right now when it comes to relationship. That people want to be able to just view digital images and dispose of people with the swipe of a finger, and that it should be that easy. Um, and again, those are the wishes of the immature mind and an immature person. And so, I always it should always be a sad thing, when people separate or divorce, regardless of the circumstances. It's not consistent with the truth of who we really are and how we want to be. Nobody wants that for themselves. Um, and But it does happen, of course, obviously, in this day and age. And like I said, it's happened to me. And so the question is how do I stay true to myself through all this? As a parent, I want to be the best parent I can possibly be. I want to be the best leader I can possibly be. We talked about in the last video clip that the point of parenting is to help my son or daughter become free, to enjoy all that life has to offer. And so the point of parenting is to liberate, is to help my son or daughter become free. And they become free by me providing the guidance and support to help them build the skill and capacity they need to become their own person, to stand on their own 2 feet, to become their own man or their own woman. And and I like to think that is at the heart. That is one of our deepest desires as parents. You know, um, and so in these divorce and custody situations, let me say that that your primary role as a liberator um, is not something that you can give up on or that you can set aside. It's interesting. I was just watching, and I'll put the link maybe to the video somewhere in some comments in the comment sections or in the descriptor of this video. But I was watching a video clip by one of my favorite teachers, if you will, a guy named Jordan B. Peterson. And if you don't know of him, you should really begin to tune in. He's a real powerful voice right now that's bringing a lot of sanity and reason to some very unstable times for us. And he is a professor of psychology out of the University of Toronto who is touring the world right now, helping people by the tens of thousands and even millions to improve their lives. And so anyway, I was watching a short video that in which it was titled, I think, "You're not grown up until you live for something more important than yourself." And if you're like me, when you became a parent, it blew your mind. You did realize that that you were given, if you will, the privilege and responsibility of raising up something sacred and precious. And that meant having to let go of a lot of immature thoughts and ideas and behaviors. So like Jordan was saying, is that, you don't really understand how immature you are as an adult until you are finally put in a situation where you have to care about something, about someone more than yourself. And this, to me, this is really, really speaks to how, as parents, we are able, or where we have the capacity. If you want it, you'll have the capacity to be able to provide good parental leadership in the midst of some very difficult times like separation or divorce. But in order to do that, you must cling to certain ideals and certain ideologies. For instance, one idea is what we already talked about, which is the point of parenting is to liberate. You are a liberator. And you're a liberator in love. You are in love, and you know that your job is to help your son and daughter become free. And as I described in the last video, one of the best ways, if not the best way, to help your son or daughter get off to a good start in life and have a good life, if you will, throughout life, is to have a solid, loving relationship with each parent. Now, here's the catch, right? The catch is that you may not like the other parent. You might not agree with how they parent. You might not agree with how they clean their house, keep their house clean. You may not agree with, how they make meals. You may not agree with any of that. But as I explained in the last video, but if parents start to talk negatively about the other parent or are indifferent to the other parent, then they stand the chance of crippling their child. Sometimes a lot of times I'll run into a couple where one of the couple is willing to do some self-exploration and do some healing work, and the other parent will not. They just refuse to show up to counseling. They refuse to be accountable. They refused any of that. And yet, you as a parent know that the best thing for your child is to have equal access to that parent and to have a relationship with that parent. And the parent who is willing to be in counseling, I suppose you could say from a traditional level, they have every reason to think, if you will, negatively, or to not speak positively about that other parent. I mean, from a certain perspective, it's like, how could you? Because that other parent is acting poorly, you know? But I can tell you that the last thing that you want to do as the healthy parent, if you consider yourself that, is to entertain kind of negative and tragic, perspectives about that other parent. And you're completely out of integrity if you're sharing those perspectives and ideas with your son or daughter. What I mean by that, let's say, you have a daughter, and she may have a father or a mother, what have you, who sometimes doesn't show up for visitation. How do you explain that to your son or daughter? Well, I can say you better be able to explain it in a way that does not demonize or cast significant, negative light on that particular parent. Well, question is, well, how am I supposed to do that, John? I don't know. You're the grown-up. Figure that out. Why? Because you are bound by your love to do no harm. You are bound by your love to care for your child, and to always be, an advocate for their wellness. If you start telling negative or, stories about that other parent, you are no longer a liberator. You are no longer demonstrating love or respect. You're out of integrity. And so, as I was thinking about this, where Jordan Peterson said, you don't really become grown up until you love something more than yourself. And I think, we can move forward in truth because we love our sons and daughters. Now, this isn't just about parenting. This is about the marital relationship itself. In a marital relationship, in a committed relationship, people have made promises to one another and made vows to one another. And when if you want to say, when those relationships break down, and everything starts to get crazy, and when I think everything starts to get crazy, I think emotionally crazy. People start to love their emotions more than their vow, would be one way to say it. What I'm getting at here is that it's an old saying, and a saying we often refer to in my parent leadership group, and that is that when a grown-up adult, because adults live by conviction. So when Jordan Peterson says something like, you're not really grown up until you learn to love something more than yourself. We could say, we're not really grown up as parents until we learn to love somebody more than ourselves. I think that's an important piece of development. We fall in love with our children, and we're willing to make a lot of sacrifices. We're in love with another adult, and we get married, and we're committed in a relationship, and that relationship will call us to make sacrifices of our immaturity as well. But take the marital situation for a second. Then the question is, what if somebody turns on you? What if somebody isn't willing to come to counseling? What if somebody isn't willing to practice integrity or accountability in the relationship? What if your own child turns on you? I work with a lot of parents whose children have turned on them. What do you do then? So then the idea of you're not grown up until you learn to love someone more than yourself, that can kind of, maybe come up a little short for some people. Because love is, to love another human being is traditionally based upon reciprocation. So if you love somebody and they don't love you back, then the relationship is over. That's what a lot of people think. But I want to suggest to you this. If you are capable of loving someone, or, loving someone even though they don't love you back, then you must be in love with something more than the person. You see, and to me, that speaks to that adage that adults live by conviction. Now, if you've been in any, serious relationship, you know it's not perfect. And there are times when you're being loving, when you're being affectionate, when you're being respectful, and you just don't get that back from your partner. You just don't get that back from your child. But you don't give up, do you? You stay in it. Why? I'll tell you why. You stay in it because of an idea you have, a conviction you have, a virtue you hold dear. And it's because we as human beings have that unique ability to love an idea. It allows us to continue loving people. Like the idea of forgiveness. I mean, clearly, for instance, in the Christian theology, when Christ says, continually forgive people, for some of you will know this, there was a reference in the Bible where Peter, an apostle, says to Christ, I believe, regarding a particular situation, how much should I forgive this person? How many times? 7 times? And Jesus said, well, no, 7 times 77. In other words, you keep forgiving, which seems impossible. It seems impossible. See, it will be impossible at that human level, but it's not impossible at a spiritual level. It's not impossible at an ideological level. And this is what we humans can do. We can rise up above what's going on at that human relational level because our conviction is to something greater. And this is how, moms and dads, that you can not only be resilient and that you can be the best leader possible, but it also convicts you a bit, right? I mean, what this says is that you can be going through your turmoil. You can still dislike the other parent if you want. You can be in pain if you want. You can be going through your healing process if you want. But you also can set that aside and do the right thing. Why? Because it is the right thing. Because it's what you truly believe. It's the idea that you hold on to stronger than the circumstances. And also because you love your child. Because you've made a promise to help them become free and to enjoy all that life has to offer. And they can experience that best. They have the best shot at that by having a relationship with both children or both parents. And they probably are acting like children, right? But that's the conviction. That's what's called conviction. So people can have belief in this, but to really embody it and to live it out, that's what maturity really is. And so we really don't grow up until we love something more than ourselves. Or another way to say it is that we really don't grow up until we love who we are in our authentic self more than we love ourselves in our kind of wounded little ego place, right? I mean, for myself, like I said, this is exactly, the journey that I, like many other parents, had to walk. That I was in personal anguish, I was in personal suffering, and I was doing my healing work. But I still knew what I had to do. I could not be indifferent to my son's mother. I could not speak of her negatively. And it wasn't about what she deserved or what she didn't deserve. It wasn't about her. It was about love. It was about the love that I had for the truth and the love that I had for my son. And I believe that that's where you get to see what you're made of. That's what all the wisdom teachings point to. That's what separates the wheat from the chaff. That's what separates the mature from the immature. And so, this is the message that I have for the parents that I'll be seeing here this next week who are experiencing marital tension and having that spill over, into their children's behavior, and they want me to fix their children. That's not going to happen. I'm going to hold them responsible. I'm going to make sure they carry the lion's share of responsibility. Responsibility of what? Being true to themselves. Yeah, you're hurt, and if you're hurt, do your healing work. Please, please, please do your healing work. It's so, we want to call it kind of disheartening when I work with people and parents who, have been hurt in the past, and whether that's through marital conflict or whether it's been through other traumatic experiences, and they've taken no steps to heal themselves, and they continue to, to ruminate, to, like a hamster on a treadwheel, a wheel just going over and over and over again, their victimization and how the other person did this and that, and that just, that is hanging out in that narrative is just not even close to the truth of who this person is. To rise up, to overcome, and to become victorious really is a matter of connecting with the truth of who we are, the truth of who they are, and embracing that narrative as much as you can, because it will lift you up. It is uplifting, and it'll allow you to be both in your woundedness and do the healing work, and it'll allow you to be the leader that you want to be. So, yeah, I hope this is helpful, parents. I know it's hard. There's, no greater love, if you will, than that between a parent and child, and, and there are a lot of reasons for that, but you cannot let your sentiments and emotions get the best of you. You must hold dear to what the truth is and those greater ideals, and let those uplift you and stabilize you through these difficult times. So, do what you need to do to establish that discipline for yourself, those habits for yourself that are uplifting, that do not feed a negative, story. Find ways to help your kids understand that what's going on is life. It's part of human nature. And wisdom teachings can offer you that. All good wisdom teachings can help enlighten us, can lift us up to a better story, to a better vision, to a more clear vision, to a better way to explain all this. So if you need help with that, parents, and you happen to live in the lower mainland and Fraser Valley of British Columbia, or even Northwest Washington State, come and join us on a Tuesday evening in the Parent Leadership Group, and just come and revitalize yourself and get the support you need. All right, have a good day and take care.